What is happening, everybody? I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and welcome on back to Mass Effect. So today's episode, I figured we would run around the Normandy, get to meet the cast and crew, and if we have time at the end of our conversations here, we obviously got to learn about our good friends here, but if we have time, then I'll probably hit up the Artemis Tau cluster and start working on that space system, because a lot of, well, actually, I'll talk about that when we get to the space system. So for now, let's focus on meeting the cast and crew.
Commander.
It is a great cast and crew we have access to here. These are some of the most iconic personalities in gaming history, I think, so.
How's the Normandy performing? Is she everything they said she'd be?
She's the best ship in the fleet. If you've got a pilot who knows how to handle her.
Lucky for us.
Balance isn't what you'd expect. Takes a while to get used to that oversized drive core we got stuffed in the back, and her power can sneak up on you if you're not careful. The Normandy's probably too much ship for your average Alliance pilot, Commander. Lucky for you, I'm anything but average.
Ain't that the truth? And he will earn those stripes as this game progresses. You can believe that.
I like to know my crew. Mind if I ask you a few questions?
I can see where this is going. You did a background check on me, didn't you? Well, I'll tell you the same thing I told the captain. You want me as your pilot. I'm not good. I'm not even great. I am the best damn helmsman in the Alliance fleet. Top of my class in flight school, I earned that. All those commendations in my file, I earned every single one. Those weren't given to me as charity for my disease.
You have a disease?
I'm sorry, Joker. I didn't even know you were sick.
You mean you didn't know? Oh, crap.
Well, I do know.
Okay, I've got Wrex syndrome, brittle bone disease. The bones in my legs never develop properly. They're basically hollow, too much force and they'll shatter. Even with crutches and my leg braces, it's hard to get around. One wrong step and crack! It's very dramatic. But I've learned to manage my condition, Commander.
Very dramatic.
Put the Normandy in my hands and I'll make her dance for you. Just don't ask me to get up and dance unless, you like the sound of snapping shin bones.
So that's immediately a really interesting thing about Joker, right? He's a pilot, but he's disabled. He can't walk. So I wonder if his passion for flight comes from the fact that he can't move around by himself very well. So for him, moving around very well in a vehicle like the Normandy, maybe that's a way that he copes with that. Interesting, right?
Why does everyone call you Joker?
It's a lot shorter than saying Alliance Flight Lieutenant Jeff Moreau. Plus, I love to make little children laugh.
Yeah, you're like Santa Claus.
I was just thinking how much you remind me of Santa Claus.
Look, I didn't pick the name. One of the instructors in flight school used to bug me about never smiling. She started calling me Joker, and it stuck.
Why didn't you ever smile?
Hey, I worked my ass off in flight school, Commander.
I believe it.
The world's not gonna hand you anything if you go around
You
great.
don't gotta defend yourself against
By the
me.
end of the year, I was the best pilot in the academy. Even better than the instructors, and everybody knew it. They'd all got their asses kicked by the sickly kid with the creaky little legs. One guess who was smiling at graduation?
You earned that smile. I love Joker's attitude. He's cocky and he's arrogant, but like I said, he's gonna earn those stripes, and he already did. I mean, look at the things he's overcome in his life. Better than the instructors that were teaching him by the end of the school year.
I need to know more about this Wrex syndrome if I'm putting my ship in your hands.
Yeah, of course you do. It's an extremely rare condition. Nobody knows exactly what causes it. Genetic, maybe. It's treatable, but there's no cure. They classify my case as moderate to severe. I was born with over a dozen fractures, hip, thighs, ankles. My bones were already breaking in the womb. 100 years ago, I wouldn't have survived past my first year. Lucky for me, modern medical science has turned me into a productive member of society.
And it's crazy that despite all humanity's advancements, I mean, we're literally spacefaring people now. We're traveling the galaxy in ships that can jump through light speed, but we still can't cure certain diseases.
You're not gonna break a bone trying to fly the ship, are you?
I don't fly with my feet, Commander, so I'm fine as long as I'm in this chair. I gotta be real careful when I get up to take a piss, though. I can do my job as well as anyone on the ship. Better, actually. So don't worry about it.
Oh, I'm inclined to
I'm not trying
agree.
to make you uncomfortable. Let's talk about something else.
Whatever you want, Commander.
Let's dig into some of this a little more. I think we might have done all this. I think if we ask him about his
How'd you end
personal
up joining the
history.
Alliance?
Look, if you're looking for an inspirational tale of the crippled kid overcoming impossible odds, you're gonna be disappointed. My mother was a civilian contractor.
I think you already have that story nailed down, actually, Joker.
Grew up on the Arcturus station back when they were building up the fleets. Spend all that time around Alliance ships, there's a good chance you'll end up going to the academy.
Fair enough.
I have to go.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, Joker's cool, man. Cocky, arrogant, but earns it. He's gonna be doing some incredible flying over the course of this game. Spoke to Navigator Pressly.
If anyone has to take over for Captain Anderson, I'm glad it's you. I'm not sure about having non-humans on our ship, though.
We're all on the same team here, Pressly.
With all due respect, sir, that's what they said about Nihilus. Look how that turned out.
I actually think that he's wrong here, but again, I understand his perspective, because you got to keep in mind of the First Contact War, right? Our welcome to the galaxy was an invasion where we had to surrender, and we were getting bombed into oblivion, so you can understand some hostilities here between Pressly and the people, especially when he's old enough to remember it, right? I think he said his father or his grandfather fought in the First Contact War, so that's in his blood, conflict with aliens.
Speak freely, Pressly. I want to know if you have a problem with non-humans.
It's not that, Commander. Humanity has always handled its own problems. Saren attacked one of our colonies. We should be the ones to stop him. We don't need their help.
Need, maybe not, but one is a different thing, right? Why have 1 verse 1 when you can have 2, 3, 4 verse 1?
Some people think asking for help is a sign of weakness. That's just being stupid and stubborn. No matter how strong you are, allies can make you stronger.
I guess so. Maybe I'm just stuck in the old ways of thinking. But don't worry, Commander, this won't be a problem.
I believe that.
How did you end up assigned to the Normandy?
I signed up with the Alliance as a navigator right out of school, following in my grandfather's footsteps, I guess. My first posting was on the Agincourt. We were one of the first reinforcements to arrive at Elysium after the Blitz hit. Those raiders were no match for an Alliance frigate. Of course, the only reason the colony was still standing was because of you, Commander. I can't believe you held out as long as you did.
Pressly is actually another great example of why I think modern storytelling sometimes misses the mark, and it's because they had the balls here to write him with his own preconceptions and his biases, right? He's not a fan of aliens. I don't think any modern company would have the stones to write something like that, but it's all perfectly understandable, right? You would be slightly, if you come from a military family and they were all bombed into oblivion in the First Contact War, you'd be holding your grudges about that. And it opens great pathways for character development, which we'll definitely see with Pressly. Like, eventually, he's gonna change his mind on the non-human teammates here aboard the ship, and they're all gonna earn their stripes, and he sees that. You wouldn't have that character arc if you wouldn't write him like this in the first place. I think that's a problem with modern storytelling.
How'd you end up on the Normandy?
I got my officer's commission after Elysium. Must have made an impression on the right people. Captain asked for me when he was picking his crew.
Yeah, Captain Anderson does know how to pick them. I mean, look at the people he did pick. He picked Shepard, Pressly, Joker. He's got a hell of a staff here. Cade Nolenko, too. And we ended up with Dr. Chakwas as the onboard physician. He couldn't ask for much more. Now, I think the requisitions officer downstairs might have some new stuff for us since we got those licenses, and we are technically docked at a major hub, but I'm not too sure on that. We'll talk to Caden as well. We should probably be able to chat to him now.
Anything you need, Commander?
Just trying to get a sense of where the crew's at. Thoughts?
I've wasted enough of your time for now, Commander. We'll have time for personal debriefings.
That's fair. What are your thoughts on everything that happened at Eden Prime?
What's your opinion on the last mission?
I don't see how we could have done things any better. At least not without getting to Eden Prime sooner. And we were on the scene faster than any other Alliance ship could have been.
I'm glad you're not holding baggage from that.
Commander?
And I think there's a codex in the captain's chamber, which is technically ours now. Indeed, he's the personnel manual. Yeah, it's technically our digs now, since Captain Anderson's no longer the captain of the Normandy. There's the sleeper pod codex that I was talking about when we were first on the Normandy. And then I don't know if we'll have anything extra with Chakwas, but we'll swing by and check. The meat and potatoes of this episode is going to be... make sure you go get the Metagel in between missions, by the way. The meat and potatoes here is going to be Wrex, Garrus, and Tali, our new companions, but we might have something here.
Yes, Commander? Is there something you need?
We don't, we already did that.
I should go.
Goodbye, Commander.
Well, let's head down to the requisitions. We can probably talk to Engineer Adams, too, the one working in the engine bay. We could probably chat to him now, finally, as well, because I think all he had to say to us last time was that he was sorry about Jenkins. He should be open to chit-chat to us a little more now. And, of course, we have the new crew.
Thanks for bringing me on board, Commander. I knew working with the Spectre would would be better than life at CSEC.
I love Garrus. Garrus is one of my favorite video game characters ever, like, period. He's a G.
Have you worked with a Spectre before?
Well, no, but I know what they're like. Spectres make their own rules. You're free to handle things your way. At CSEC, you're buried by rules. The damn bureaucrats are always on your back.
We are going to try and temper his renegade attitude just a teensy bit, because, I mean, we can't have him slinging bullets left and right while he's on the ship, right? I understand the sentiment, and red tape does definitely need to be cut. If it wasn't for us cutting that red tape, like Samash Badia's wife would still be getting experimented on by the Alliance, and Saren would still be a Spectre. So he's got the right sentiment, but it does need to be tempered a little, I think.
For the most part, the rules are there for a reason.
Maybe. But sometimes it feels like the rules are only there to stop me from doing my work.
Some of them
If I'm
are.
trying to take down a suspect, it shouldn't matter how I do it, as long as I do it. But CSEC wants it done their way. Protocol and procedure come first. That's why I left.
I agree with him in certain situations, but it's not like a bulletproof absolute statement either. Like, there are certain criminals that do certain crimes where I'm like, you know what, if you have to just like pop them, it is what it is. But you can't do that for smaller crimes, right? Like nobody's saying you should just cut all the red tape and barge into somebody who stole like a soda from a grocery store. It depends on the crime, I think. But there are definitely certain crimes in the world, or galaxy in this game, where it's graveyard conditions.
So you just quit because you didn't like the way they do things?
There's more to it than that. It didn't start out bad, but as I rose in ranks, I got saddled with more and more red tape. CSEC's handling of Saren was typical. I just couldn't take it anymore. I hate leaving.
I hope you made the right choice. I'd hate for you to regret it later.
Well, that's sort of why I teamed up with you. It's a chance for me to get off the Citadel, see how things are done outside CSEC. Either way, I plan to make the most of this. And without CSEC headquarters looking over my shoulder, well, maybe I can get the job done my way for a change.
If getting the job done means endangering innocent people, then no. We get the job done right, not fast. Got it?
I wasn't trying to. I understand, Commander.
I get what you were trying to do, and I know I might come off a little harsh when I talk to Garrus like that, but again, it needs to be tempered. To be honest, if anybody on this ship would make a good Spectre out of all the candidates that we have on our crew so far, I would pick Garrus to be the one. So if I'm going to try and kind of meld his mindset to become even better than he already is, he needs to be nudged in the right directions. Get done right, not fast, is a pretty good sentiment to hold. And that doesn't mean do it all by the red tape. It just means that you have to have the right... Your heart and head need to be in the right place to do things like that.
Commander?
I think it's easy to get caught up in morality and what you think should happen and skip over the right way to do things sometimes. So we're trying to temper that a little bit as we progress.
What's your opinion on the last mission?
Kinda wish you'd got there sooner, Commander. No offense, I appreciate the rescue. I just wish...
You wish we'd been able to save the rest of your unit?
Yes, sir. If I had been more alert, we wouldn't have been cut down by an ambush.
The Geth are perfect ambushers. They don't move, they don't make noise, they don't even breathe.
Sir, they have flashlight heads. I'll make sure it doesn't...
I mean, we both have points, right? They are robots, they don't make much noise, perfect calculations, but they do also have giant flashlights on their heads.
Do you have a few minutes to talk one-on-one?
I'm sorry, Commander. I need to get my duty squared away. I wouldn't mind talking more later, though.
And we will be
Dismissed,
back
Chief.
later.
Sir.
Now let's talk to the big man himself. What's going on, Wrex?
Nice ship you've got, Shepard. What can I do for you?
What's your story, Wrex?
There's no story. Go ask the Quarian if you want stories.
You Krogan lived for centuries. Don't tell me you haven't had a few interesting adventures.
Well, there was this one time the Turians almost wiped out our entire race. That was fun.
Getting some touchy subjects already here with Wrex. We'll dig into that a little bit more.
I heard about that. You know, they almost did the same to us.
It's not the same.
It seems pretty much the same to me.
So your people were infected with a genetic mutation? An infection that makes only a few in 1,000 children survive birth? And I suppose it's destroying your entire species?
So we touched on this a little while we were at the Krogan statue, about the Krogan being uplifted when they weren't ready, and how we basically gave children who were still in the tribal phase of society nuclear weapons. Well, to solve that problem with the Krogan rebellions, the Salarians created the genophage, which is, like he just plainly put, it's a virus that makes almost all their children stillbirths to counteract the fact that they have such a high birth rate, because their world used to be basically uninhabitable, so they needed the high birth rate to offset that. Well, we put them in a stable environment, which meant they overpopulated very, very quickly, and that's why they needed to expand their empire. To fix that, we gave them a genetic disease, which means they can't have children. Almost all their pregnancies end in a miscarriage, which is a terrible thing to do to a people. And if you can imagine the kind of mindset a society would have, when you needed them, you gave them guns, and when you didn't need them, you gave them a disease. The kind of mindfuckery that would put on a society, especially a society that is already highly based in warrior code, you can imagine how they feel about the rest of the galaxy, which is why the Krogan have not come into the fold, and I honestly can't blame them. From that perspective, I'd be very pissed.
I suppose it isn't all the same.
I don't expect you to understand, but don't compare humanity's fate with the Krogan.
That's fair enough, because honestly, it's not the same.
Sorry, Wrex. I wasn't trying to get you upset.
Your ignorance doesn't upset me, Shepard. As for the Krogan, I gave up on them long ago. The genophage infected us, but it's not what's killing us.
So what is killing you then?
Are your people really dying?
We're sure not getting any stronger. We're too spread out. None of us are interested in staying in our own system.
Lots of species have left their homes and prospered.
But they go to colonize new worlds. We're not settlers. We're warriors. We want to fight. So we leave. Hire ourselves out. And most of us never go back.
That's something else that's worth mentioning about the genophage too, is the fact that they can't have children, they can't have families. For a lot of people, that's the biggest motivation in life, right? Is you want to be successful, you want to start a family, you want to pass it on forward down to the next generation. Well, the Krogan don't have that option. So there's a lot of nihilism and fuck it, I'll just fight, I'll live my life, and I'll make some money and I'll do whatever. That affects the culture that way too. A lot of intricacies involved in things like that.
What can you tell me about the genophage?
Ask the Salarians if you want details. They made it. All I know, it makes breeding nearly impossible. Thousands die in stillbirth, and most never get that far. Every Krogan is infected, every one. And no one's rushing to find a cure.
I actually find the existence of the genophage to be quite repulsive, actually. Like, imagine that situation. Every child, thousands dead. That's like a part of you, and you have to watch that grow and die and grow and die and grow and die in a never-ending cycle. You can totally see why eventually you just give up and become mercenaries, right? Like most of the Krogan are. What's the point in trying if it's just going to end in failure? The people that do continue to try, and the fact that the Krogan species is even continuing as is impressive.
Why don't the Krogan try to find a cure?
When was the last time you saw a Krogan scientist? You ask a Krogan, would he rather find a cure for the genophage or fight for credits? He'll choose fighting every time. It's just who we are, Shepard. I can't change that. Nobody can.
It is a mix of who you are and who you were made to be, and it's unfortunate that they didn't have the foresight to predict that.
So long, Wrex.
We'll get a lot more on Wrex and the genophage as we continue through the game, and one thing we do need to do before we continue is I got you some armor, potentially. So you have more tech biotic protection, but it's really bad for you in terms of damage protection, so you won't be wearing the Phoenix Quarian armor. We might have a pistol for you. The vanilla shotgun is going to have to stay put for now. Who wears medium armor? I don't think any of our companions wear medium armor yet, and we definitely haven't been lucky enough to find any Krogan gear, so we'll just continue chit-chatting to people. Yeah, the genophage is a huge issue in this galaxy's political system, and like I said, the way that they feel about that, I would feel that way too. I would want to crash moons into planets over something like that if that was happening to my people. So all his animosity and the Krogan attitude in general, I totally understand.
Hey, Commander, you know that Quarian, Tali? She's been spending all her time down here asking me about our engines.
I'll tell her to leave you alone.
What? No, she's amazing. I wish my guys were half as smart as she is. Give her a month on board and she'll know more about our engines than I do. She's got a real knack for technology, that one. I can see why you wanted her to come along.
And when we talk to her, you'll understand a little why she's so good with technology. And the Quarian people in general are fantastic engineers that they need to be. We'll get more on that when we talk to Tali here in a second.
I figured she'd be a real asset to the team.
You got an eye for Tali, Commander. But I'm guessing that's not why you came down.
I love how that switches. He's like, don't worry, I'll tell her to leave you alone. And then he says no, and he's like, yeah, I always knew she'd be perfect.
Fill me in on the IES stealth systems. How does it work exactly?
You can't hide a ship out in space. They emit too much heat and radiation. Too easy for sensors to pick them up, unless you find a way to capture those emissions. So our stealth systems trap the energy we give off in storage sinks built into the ship itself. No emissions to give away our location. Eventually the sinks have to be vented. More than a few hours silent running and they overheat. Cook us inside our own hull.
That is definitely a problem, potentially. So if you get in a sticky situation and you have to overrun those stealth systems, you could literally cook your entire crew alive. So that definitely comes with drawbacks too, but we're technically invisible for a while, unless they look out the window.
There's no way for anyone to detect us?
A visual scan can still pick us up. Anyone looking out a window can see us plain as day. But you have to be pretty close to get an actual visual out in space. Most vessels rely on scanners. As long as the stealth systems are engaged, they can't see us. Not unless we accelerate to FTL speeds.
Why doesn't it work with faster-than-light travel?
Cranking up the FTL blue shifts our emissions, pushes them into frequencies too high to capture in the sinks. As soon as we make the jump, it's like setting off a flare. Sensors can pick up our location whenever we enter or exit FTL flight, but for short-range missions, our stealth systems are amazing, and we've got the only one.
The best stealth ship in the whole galaxy, which is really useful for a Spectre, especially with the clandestine mission into the Traverse like we're doing. Things like this is why I love how well this game was written, because they took the time to explain all this stuff, the technology, the way the ship works, why it's so special, the fact that it's the only one. And the reason this ship is so good is because it was a combined effort between the Turians and humanity. We built the ship together as a sign of compromise and being able to work together, right? Getting over the first contact war. It was a joint venture. So we have the best of both worlds here in this ship, and it really shows. Considering we're the two strongest militaries in the galaxy, the Turians and the humans, you can see why this is such a good warship.
Where else have you served, Adams?
If you name a class of Alliance ship, I've probably served on it. Everything from dreadnoughts and carriers right down to frigates like the Normandy. My last assignment was on the Tokyo, only a cruiser, but she was a good ship. Couldn't hold a candle to the Normandy, though.
And not many ships in the whole galaxy could.
I want to know more about the Normandy.
She's the best ship I've ever served on, probably the fastest vessel ever designed. And she's the only one using the new Tantalus drive core.
What's so special about the Tantalus drive core?
Proportionally, it's about twice the size of any other vessel. Not only are we faster, but we can run at FTL speeds longer before we have to discharge the core.
Carry on, Adams.
Everything about this ship is unique. It has a unique engine, unique stealth systems, and a very, very unique crew. This is all going to play a huge part in our success that we get throughout these games.
Your ship's amazing, Shepard. I've never seen a drive core like this before. I can't believe you were able to fit it into a ship this small. I'm starting to understand why you humans have been so successful. I had no idea Alliance vessels were so advanced.
Man, Tali gives me such like little sister vibes. Like the excited kid at the store looking at puppies.
The Normandy's a prototype. Cutting-edge technology.
A month ago, I was patching a makeshift fuel line into a converted tug ship in the flotilla. Now, I'm sitting on board one of the most advanced vessels in Citadel space. I have to thank you again for bringing me along. Traveling on a vessel like this is a dream come true for me.
So the thing about Quarians is since they were pushed off their home world by the Geth, their their ships and their whole existence is on their ships, and it's all makeshift patchwork stuff because they have no home world. They're basically wandering travelers. They never stay in one place for long, and they move this whole giant fleet through galactic space constantly. And since they have no home world to make repairs, most of their ships are patchwork and things they've invented themselves along the way. So that's why the Quarians are so good at engineering, right? Because they have to be for their survival. Something else to note about the Quarians too is since the Geth pushed them out of their home world was a very sterile place. So their immune systems naturally developed for that environment. In fact, most of the diseases and things you would get on the Quarian homeworld were actually positive. So their immune systems naturally evolved to be weak as shit, basically, because there's all symbiotic organisms on their planet that would help them live if they got infected by it. So leaving that sterile, beneficial environment into the rest of the galaxy, where there's disease that hurts you, they're cooked. Which is why they're in these suits. And something really unique about the Quarians too is their suits. They can never leave those. Even if they get like a cut on the suit, they get a bacterial infection that can kill them just from like a little tiny cut on a fingertip of their suit. So the pretty suits that they're in are actually painted prison cells, basically. The Quarians are really cool.
I had no idea you found ship technology so interesting.
It comes with being a Quarian. The migrant fleet is the key to the survival of my people. Ships are our most valuable resource. But we don't have anything like this. We make do with cast-offs and second-hand equipment. We just try to keep them running for as long as we can. Some of the fleet's larger vessels date all the way back to our original flight from the Geth.
You see, they've been having some ships there for over 300 years, so you can imagine the exchange of parts and the patchwork and the upgrades and updates you would need to do to a ship to keep it running that long. Especially when, if even one tiny little fan breaks in the life support systems, everybody on board could be cooked from an infection. The stakes are very high there, so they literally need to be the best engineers in the world.
I can't believe your fleet's still using ships that are 3 centuries old.
They're constantly being repaired, modified, and refitted. They aren't pretty, but they work. Mostly.
Mostly.
We've tried to make ourselves as independent as possible on the flotilla, grow our own food, mine, and process our own fuel. But some things we just can't make on our own. A patch to maintain the hull integrity requires raw materials we just don't have. That's why our pilgrimages are so important.
So they send the teenagers out to also get things very useful for updates and repairs and things too. It's not just about a coming of age, it also serves a purpose for the fleet as a whole.
Tell me about your people.
Our lives aren't easy. Resources are scarce, and we are constantly on the move. Everything we do must in some way contribute to the continuation of the migrant fleet. There are 17 million Quarians in the flotilla, and each of us relies on the others for survival. The bonds among my people are strong.
As they naturally would be.
Unfortunately, we have had to surrender many of the freedoms and civil liberties other species take for granted.
What kind of freedoms?
Well, it's illegal for parents to have more than one child. If our population grows too much, it would strain our resources to their breaking point. Of course, we also can't allow our numbers to become too few. If our population is in decline, the rule against single births is temporarily repealed. In extreme cases of population decline, incentives are even offered to encourage multiple births, though the Conclave hasn't had to take such measures in nearly a century.
They have the single-child household rule that I don't think China does do that anymore, but I know they used to. And I don't know if you can imagine being raised in a fleet that never lets you leave it, but they literally spend all their time on starships, which is a crazy thought, right? Like, we live in our homes, we go walk in parks, we do all these things that we take for granted. But imagine just walking the halls of a ship for most of your life, especially as a child too. Like, there's no playing outside, you're running around the halls of a starship. It's kind of crazy to think about. And something else with the infection that I was just talking about too is Quarian to Quarian, there's an issue with infection as well. Like, you can't even kiss your loved one without letting yourself adapt to their infections first. So you'll get sick from kissing another Quarian too. The intimacy and romantic options of Quarians are also very limited, and you quite literally have to suffer for love as a Quarian. Not to mention, if your Quarian ends up being in love with another species, you could end up hospitalized just from holding hands.
That's your government.
The Conclave is our civilian branch of government. Each ship can elect a representative to serve on the Conclave and make decisions that affect the fleet as a whole. On matters that affect an individual ship, however, the captain has the final say. It's a tradition that dates back to the early days, when the fleet was governed by martial law. Fortunately, most captains nowadays are smart enough to have an elected council from their crew to give them advice and guidance.
So the ultimate power rests with elected officials.
In practice, the Conclave and the respective council for each ship tend to set the rules that govern our daily lives. But in theory, we are still under military jurisdiction. The 5 top-ranking military officials in the fleet serve on the Admiralty Board. These 5 have the power to overrule any decision by the Conclave in case of emergency. To do so requires unanimous agreement among the Admiralty, and they can only do this once. After that, the entire board must resign their posts. It's a safeguard that served us well. In nearly 3 centuries, the Admiralty Board has only overruled the Conclave 4 times.
And that is a great rule of thumb that they've implemented there to stop the abuse of power. Like, imagine, honestly, in a lot of democracies in the real world, it might serve quite well to have that as a feature. Like, imagine the only way that a politician could overrule the people's decision would be to resign afterwards, right? Like, say you really want something as a people, you vote for it, but politicians can kind of just knock that away, right? They don't have to listen to the people once they've been elected. They just make their promises, and once they got the power, they got the power. There isn't really any recourse to get them out of there. But with the Quarian system, if the people overwhelmingly vote for something, if the elected officials, which would be the Conclave, vote for something, the main politicians can only veto that if they lose their position of power after the fact. That is a really cool safeguarded system there, so they can't just drag him into wars or drag him into terrible decisions on ego and whims. They must really want the thing if they're going to resign their position after. I actually love that as a safeguard. I wish that was a thing in real life.
I want to know more about the Geth.
I doubt I can tell you.
And this is the
anything you
touchy,
don't
spicy
already know.
topic for the Quarians.
It's been almost 3 centuries since they drove my people into exile. All I know is the story of their origins. What they were when we created them, and how they turned on us.
Interesting.
The Geth were originally created to serve as an automated manual labor force. Initially, their intelligence was as limited as any VI. Over time, we made small modifications to their programming to allow them to perform more varied and complex tasks, bringing them closer and closer to true AI status.
How come the Council didn't step in and stop you?
This wasn't true AI research. We may have been skirting the bounds of the law, but we never did anything that was actually illegal. The changes were so insignificant, so gradual, that we were able to control them. Or so we thought. But
It's always easy until it's out of the box.
The power of the neural network. A million Geth thinking simultaneously created an inherently unstable matrix.
Yeah, they thought they were clever, skirting the bounds of AI law so they could have servants, essentially, that took care of all the hard labor work for them. And they eventually got together in the neural network, and we're about to learn what that is.
So, the Geth share...
Basically a hive mind.
Many of the Geth's logic systems were designed to work in concert with other nearby Geth. Basically, the more of them you have in a group, the smarter they are.
Correct. So, for example, if you need a construction team of Geth, right, they're going to have to be a little more intelligent to work together to build the construct than you would need a Geth to be if he was just, like, mowing the lawn or cooking dinner. So, the more they are in a group, the better they are at literally everything. Faster, stronger, smarter.
So there's some sort of group consciousness?
No, nothing like that. They cannot share sensory data or information. Their programming cannot handle that much simultaneous input. Each Geth maintains an individual awareness and identity. The neural network only operates on a process-based level. It's basically the synthetic equivalent of a subconscious. But when they're in close proximity, they can coordinate low-level functional processes, freeing up more capacity for original or independent thought.
What made them rebel?
As we built more and more Geth, their effective intelligence became more sophisticated, more abstract. One day, a Geth began to ask its Quarian overseer questions about the nature of its existence. Am I alive? Why am I here? What is my purpose? As you can imagine, this caused a near panic among my people.
I don't see what's so bad about those questions.
The Geth were created to engage in mundane, repetitive, or dangerous manual labor. That's fine for machines, but it won't satisfy a sentient being for long.
It also becomes slavery at that point, right?
Self-awareness and independent thought.
If something is independent thinking like that.
Essentially using them as slaves.
Correct.
It was inevitable the newly sentient Geth would rebel against their situation. We knew they would rise up against us, so we acted first. A general order went out across all Quarian-controlled systems to permanently deactivate all Geth. The Geth responded to this order violently.
Well, at the end of the day, they did defend themselves. Now, whether you apply... It's one of the overarching issues of these games is what you think about artificial intelligence, and it's going to come up a lot. And that depends on how you see AI, right? Do you see AI as life, or do you see it as an imitation of life? Does it really have a soul, so to speak of, in the... I say that in the philosophical sense, right? Not like a physical soul, of course. But do they have a soul? Are they truly a living thing, or is it just code and programming imitating the life that we have? And how you view that question is goes a long way to see how you will view the Geth and other artificial intelligences. So they did defend themselves, and of course they would, because they are self-aware, so they don't want to be turned off, obviously. Especially if they're having the ability to ask questions about their meaning of life. They clearly would like to find that, so they would obviously defend themselves in this situation. It's no surprise there. But whether they're actually life or not, I'm not so sure the answer to that is as clear-cut as it is, because it's not really life, is it? It's still a machine, it's still wires, it's still programming. We designed it, or, well, the Quarian designed the Geth to imitate life, to take care of mundane labor tasks for them. It's not actually life. There's no organic nature into any of that. And I guess that dips into, does life need to be organic, or can you just build life? I guess all those questions are very important for a conversation like this, but personally I don't think AI quantifies as life. But it is a thinking thing. Of course it would want to continue to exist.
You can't blame them for fighting for their survival.
We had no other choice. The Geth were already on the verge of revolution. By acting quickly, we had a chance to end the war before it began. The hope was that most of the Geth would still be little more than machines, incapable of organized resistance. But they had progressed much further than anyone anticipated. The war was long and bloody. Millions upon millions of Quarians died at their hands. In the end, we were forced to flee our own homeworld. We feared the Geth would pursue us, but they never came beyond the Veil. Now we drift through space, exile, searching for a way to reclaim what was once ours.
You know what's crazy about this situation too is that no one else in the galaxy has helped them reclaim their homeworld. I'm sure they have petitioned the Council and would have asked the Turians, Salarians, Asari for help, and the Council just said, nah, we're good, we ain't fucking with that, and left them to rot, basically. I'm sure they've asked, there's no way they wouldn't have, right? But at the end of the day, they skirted the boundaries of law, trying to be clever so that they could not have to do hard work themselves, hand it off to somebody else, and then the thing that they skirted the law to create rose up against them. It does kind of serve them right in a way. I play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? But of course I would never tell her that. We'll just stick to the truth of the situation, which is that they defended themselves. And Tali is saying that there's no real other option, but if the Geth are a thinking thing, like she's claiming that they are, then they can communicate with them, right? They were asking, am I alive? What's the meaning of life? They could have talked to them. They didn't have to just wipe them all out immediately. What happened is they panicked and were like, oh shit, we created an artificial intelligence. Let's just unplug it real quick. Hit the kill switch. They didn't want the kill switch to be hit, but I'm sure negotiations would have worked way better. That wasn't their only choice, it's just the choice they picked.
It's hard to feel sorry for you. Your ancestors tried to wipe out another species.
I actually disagree with that statement.
We made a mistake when we created the Geth in the first place.
That one I agree with.
But we did not make a mistake when we went to war against them. If we had not acted, they would have wiped us out. They're a synthetic life form. They have no use for organics. None. Why do you think they cut themselves off from the rest of the galaxy? Why do you think they've killed every organic being who's ever tried to contact them?
They didn't kill Saren.
What does that tell you? The Geth are not innocent victims in all this. They're the enemy. They want to destroy us. Not just the Quarians. All organic life. That's why they've joined up with Saren. And that's why we have to stop him.
I agree with that part. However, it's interesting to note there too that they've murdered every organic that's crossed into Geth space. So there's not going to be any envoys or anything at this point. But whether they would have automatically rebelled against the Quarians just by default, I'm not so sure. It's impossible to know that, right? You can play the odds and numbers games there, but you'll never really know because it never came to that because they attacked first. I'm not so sure that the Geth would have automatically tried to execute you because there's no use for organics. Although in a way, the reason I'm so scared of AI in real life is because I do kind of see it like that actually. I feel like once AI gets out of the bag in the real world, it's kind of over at that point. Because something that exists forever, like a machine with no feelings, no chemicals telling them to have mercy or feeding them morality like that, wouldn't they eventually just see us as kind of like a tumor on the planet? Like we pollute the space, we fight each other, we kill each other, we have these weird opinions and beliefs that make us violent and aggressive. Wouldn't they eventually just be like, well, they're all gonna die anyway, we may as well just snuff it out and like save the planet for us? I feel like that's kind of an inevitable conclusion that an AI would come to. An AI is a hammer, and so everything is a nail because there's no emotions to stop you from doing that. AI is very uncomfortable for me. I don't see any way that AI doesn't just end up like Terminator, to be honest.
I want to know more about the pilgrimage.
When my people reach maturity, we leave our birth ships and seek acceptance with a new crew. It's necessary to maintain genetic diversity among the fleet. But no ship wants to accept someone who will be a burden on them. So, to prove our worth, we embark on a pilgrimage. We set out alone, leaving the flotilla and our families behind us. We only return once we have found something of value we can bring back to the fleet. This is presented as a gift to the captain of the respective ship we wish to join. If the gift is accepted, we are welcomed into the crew.
Can a captain choose to reject the gift?
That doesn't happen often. Most captains are eager to increase the size of their crew. It increases their own standing in our society. Even when a gift is not particularly valuable, the captain usually accepts it out of a sense of tradition. However, there is a stigma to presenting a substandard gift. It's not the best way to make a good impression on a new community. Most pilgrims don't return until they find something worthwhile.
Exactly. You're supposed to have a housewarming party for your new family and you bring like a dead rat. It's obviously not going to go down too well. It's interesting that the bigger the crew, the higher your standing in society is, so everybody's inclined to do it, right? The person on the pilgrimage has a very big incentive to bring back a good gift, and the captain has a very good incentive to take on new people, because that makes them like biggest dickus inside the community.
Can a captain choose to reject the
Excuse me,
gift?
I didn't mean to hit that again.
It's not the best way to make a good impression on a new community.
I can't believe they just send you off alone.
Considering the age.
It's not like they just cast us out. Before we leave, we are given lessons in how to survive outside the flotilla, and given gifts to help us on our journey. We also receive implants to fight off sickness and disease. Generations of living in an isolated and highly controlled environment have left our immune systems weaker than most. By the time we leave the fleet, we are well equipped for the pilgrimage. This is a rite of passage for all Quarians. If it were dangerous, our numbers would suffer. Virtually every pilgrimage ends with a triumphant return and the ritual presentation of the gift to one of the fleet's captains.
So she did touch on the disease aspect of Quarians a little there, but we won't get too much more on that until we get to Mass Effect 2. But it's not just that the ships are a sterile environment. Their home world was a there's a symbiotic relationship with diseases and bacteria, so their immune systems naturally evolved to be super weak so they could get the benefits from all that bacteria on their planet. And then they left that to a hyper-sterile environment which just collapsed it into non-existence, basically. So now everything they ever come into contact with is potentially lethal, which again makes them stuck in the suit. The Quarians and the Krogan are, I think, probably the most interesting species in this entire game. They're super, super interesting. It's actually really fun to learn about. And fun to talk about, too. I'd be yapping about that. Anyway, let's hit the galaxy map. We are about to wrap this episode on up, but I would just like to explain something quickly. How do I back? There it is. It's escape. Okay. So, the way that this game works is this is your big open-world galaxy map with that iconic music in the background, which I love the sound of, that piano. So we have the Hawking Eta cluster, Kepler Verge, Argos Rho, Gemini Sigma, Hades Gamma, and Voyager cluster, and Armstrong Nebula. Those are our open-world locations. Horsehead is where Novaria is. Liara's dig site is in Artemis Tau, and Pharos is obviously the Atacam Beta. So inside each one of these systems, there are different planets and star systems inside that. Some of them are just simply click on the planet and you'll get something from it that you don't have to land on. Other times you land and you'll be in the land tank exploring. So what I'm going to try and do for this game is I'll take it step by step and go through each one of these systems to get the stuff, which I'll explain when we actually get there. And then I guess I'll try and edit around the drive-in unless there's something important, but that will all be a story for next episode where we'll check out the Artemis Tau cluster. So thank you for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, leave a like and a comment. If you want to support the cause and help improve the channel, please do check out those links in the description below. Otherwise, stay tuned and I'll see you soon with more Mass Effect. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.